Lawyer Martin Kpebu Addo and SML ababetuja on Ken Ofori-Atta ni release na release no edina free ni detention center. Na wa drop a hidden secret about Ken Ofori-Atta ni release na abusua enye asem keto akra. Lawyer Martin Kpebu de ense ono no oni OSP no. Wono krawa file petition to remove OSP Kisi Ejaben. Onon debi asem no ka say eye Kisi Ejaben ena akwakofa sa ensem we nyina aba. Kisi Ejaben ena akwakofa sa ensem we nyina. Cause enye Kisi Ejaben a ohwe SML deal a Manase Azuri ebe breaki sa update or this are exposing by a 2023 December. And a Manase Azuri a drop sa expose no. And Kisi Ejaben etna ho na last day. And or yes or react on sa time na Ken Ofori-Atta wa vanish e de free Ghana ha say. Intin waba aba drop shocking details on Ken Ofori-Atta ni release no ama isi ano on Ken Ofori-Atta lawyer no nensema or the tuja hidden secret be a woman no or the ashoke Ken Ofori-Atta ni lawyer no mo yanko na yanko tie a private legal practitioner lawyer Martin Kpebu nensema or the tuja efa Ken Ofori-Atta ni release a release no mo yanko tie.
Martin Kpebu has been consistent that the special prosecutor could have moved faster than what we're seeing now. And he talks about that's what Justice Abdullahi was referring to about methodology and approach. This is Martin Kpebu's position on this and why this extradition could have been done earlier than what we are seeing now. Take a look.
My signature tune is that Ofori-Atta and Akufo-Addo were just bent on borrowing to make their families rich. That's my famous sentence. We borrow, then Akufo-Addo's family becomes rich through Akufo-Addo's, through Ofori-Atta's data bank. It's a statement I make week in, week out here, right? So I should be one of the very first persons to be extremely excited about getting Ofori-Atta to justice, right? But in view of the fact that these matters have been around for years and Kisi Ejaben has not been able to invite him and move forward the case, it's difficult at this time to say that I'm on the side of Kisi Ejaben. No, it's not. Look at the SML matter too. The same thing. SML Manasseh broke it in December 2023, not 2024. So if you count from December 2023 to January 2025, you are looking at not less than 14 months or thereabout. Yes, so it's more than a year. So why sit on your hands for more than a year and the man announces that he's going for medical treatment? That's the time you say you need him. I mean,
Martin Kpebu there, and the special prosecutor's charges, which Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers say he has not been formally notified of, and we know the reasons why. 28 of them, and he's not the only one standing trial on this SML matter. Isaac Krentil, the former commissioner, Customs Division of the GRA, and NS Dako Akore, who is also out of the jurisdiction or at large, as we do know now, is a chef de cabinet to Ken Ofori-Atta, and then Kojo Damwa, who is now Member of Parliament for the German South constituency. And at the time, he was a former Commissioner of Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. And then Emmanuel Kofi Nti, former Commissioner General. And then another former Commissioner General, Reverend Amishadai Osuamwa, 10 counts, 39 counts, both of them respectively. And then Ivan Seduse, 19, CEO of SML. And then SML as a also separate legal entity that has also been sued in its artificial sense there with 18 counts. But we'll see how this matter plays out, and then especially taking into consideration what's happening in the United States with Ken Ofori-Atta. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next show on Ghana Tonight. Ghana's crude oil output declines for that this is having on the crude oil revenue that has been projected to be at least raked in from crude oil production in this country. We have it captured in our budget for 2026. But then the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, report that was released earlier today paints a certain picture of how things are playing out regarding the crude oil prices, that is the production of crude oil by Ghana. Now, this clearly gives us as an indication of what the next phase will be. The decline for the sixth consecutive year in 2025, according to the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, presenting the findings of the PIAC 2025 annual report earlier today. The committee's chair, Richard Elema, disclosed that production has fallen sharply from a peak of 71.4 million barrels in 2019 to 37.3 million barrels in 2025. Take a look at this.
So this is a cumulative figure, oil production from 2010 to 2025. So you notice that in 2019, we had our highest production of oil. 2019, we had our highest of 71.4 million barrels. Now, compare that to 2025, where we had 37 million barrels. What is even more significant is the fact that from 2019, we have consistently been dropping. We have consistently been, the oil production has been reducing consistently. So we came to that sharp drop in 2025. And it is something that PIAC has raised a number of years.
So that's the troubling reality that we're faced with when it comes to the production of crude oil here in Ghana. The consistent decline, and we tracked it. The research desk here also sent the information from the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, over the last 6 years. It actually reflects what PIAC has been talking about. We went back as far back as 2019 till now. Over the last 7 years, we've seen the decline. And Wisdom Safo put this together. 2019, 71.4 million barrels. 2020 declined to 66.9 million barrels. 2021 declined to 55.1 million barrels. 2022, 51.7 million barrels of crude. We're going to put it on the screen right now. It clearly gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. And in 2023, 48.2 million barrels. That steadied into 2024, same volumes in 2024. And then in 2025, we've seen a decline as well from 48.2 million barrels per day to 37.3 million barrels per day. That's the trend that clearly raises some concern about what exactly should be the focus of policy makers regarding ramping up the production of crude oil. And with the discovery of new wells in Ghana, how would that also impact on this data that we've been analyzing at least over the last 7 years? Ben Boakye is the director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Mr. Boakye, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. How concerning is this trajectory that we're seeing and the trend over the last at least 7 years in the decline of crude oil production in Ghana?
A major concern for the fiscal position of the country, and it's been happening for the past 6 years as indicated. And we kept sounding the alarm bell that this was going to be the reality of Ghana if the production profiles and also additional reserves were not activated to replace the aging fields. When you discover oil, the quantities are usually fixed. You can be lucky to keep producing for a while by optimizing the field, but at some point it's going to plateau. And when it plateaus, a certain decline would happen. So it is normal for producing fields to decline after peaking or plateauing. So that is a normal trend that we're seeing because we are not adding additional fields to the fields that are already producing. And we have seen this, predicted it over time, and had indicated in the past that if we did not change behavior and be more analytical in the way we are governing the oil and gas sector, the ultimate result will be to see the eventual decline and death of the oil and gas industry. And that is what has been happening. To see production decline from over 70 million barrels a year to now about 37, which is about half of production at peak, is pretty concerning, but the behavior of the country made it extremely predictable. And I say this because, I mean, way back after oil discovery, the appetite of the country went so high, we became emotive beings rather than being analytical to see how we grow the industry. So it was more about, local content, doing it ourselves, investing our own resources to be able to produce oil and gas, and not more of activating the reserves to a point where more revenue comes in, and that empowers the local participants to be able to also take interest, begin to develop their own capacities and fields. So we rushed into, the situation that we're in today, where we thought we could have it all without recognizing that it takes billions, to really invest in exploration, push through development, and actually produce. It costs a lot of money. And if you don't have the local financial capacity to do that, then you have to incentivize foreign counterparts that you can learn from. You can encourage local participation at a less risky level, make more money, and then begin to venture gradually. But we pushed pretty high, giving oil blocks to local people who didn't have capacity, fronts who couldn't really promise investments in the sector. And that has been the result, really. And of course, it's not just the politicians, but the ordinary citizens on the street knew how much the country could earn and not how much it cost to actually produce oil. So you had fora of people criticizing foreign counterparts who were putting in the billions and assuming that it was all cheat, and therefore we need to do it ourselves. And this is the results that we are getting. And we kept questioning that it is totally a risk-reward venture. You have to put in the billions, and if you are lucky, the state benefits from it. If you're not lucky, you cut your losses and you move on. And we've seen companies come into Ghana and invested $800, $700 million and made no money and had to go away. All right. And that is the risk you need to take to produce oil. So if you have analysts, so-called nationalists, who think that all it takes for the country to benefit.
That point that you made about, some companies, that's private companies coming into Ghana spending millions and they don't even hit any oil. Can Ghana or should Ghana take that risk as well? Because you're saying that, look, as a country, we should take the bull by the horn, put in the millions. If we find the oil, we have full ownership. If not, we take the loss. But I mean, let's look at the reality check here. Can we afford to put in millions of dollars, explore a particular well, and not hit any oil? And then we come back to the Ghanaian people and say, you know what, we put in $200, $300 million into this. We didn't find any oil. And so, well, we have to deal with it. As against the current position where you have a lot more private sector players who have the financial muscle to take the risk, coming in to now explore. I mean, what policy response from where you sit should the ministry or government take in the wake of this?
We should count our seconds. We should count our minutes. We've seen some positive signs which are actually targeting a revival of, the producing fields. But it goes beyond that. You have to replace reserves. And to be able to replace reserves, you need policy credibility, policy certainty. In Ghana, you have parliament sitting there always thinking they can pass any law, right? And we're always tinkering with laws. We're always passing new laws without creating a certain environment where investors are guaranteed that there is stability in the environment, there's stability in the atmosphere. Once we keep passing laws and investors cannot be sure what the country will be up to the next year or two, it makes the country unattractive. It's difficult today it's easy for us to model what we need. I mean, if you have an oil industry and you think that for every oil block, your state should be 50, 60, 70%, put that on the table right from the beginning. Let investors appreciate what you are looking for and create certain stability that is what you are running with. Don't come every year trying to change modalities and arrangement. When you see discovery, you want to reform agreements, you want to tinker with it with, fiscal, numbers that are not in the original arrangement. That really creates a bit of disincentive. We've also been in a situation where we are always promising reforms and the reforms never happen. So you keep the investors, always wondering when the reforms would actually happen. For example, we have been promising of reviewing the petroleum law since 2018, right? And we have not been able to do it. So every investor is on tenterhooks waiting to see what that reform will look like. And you can see the time lag when it's just a matter of taking the right action, engaging and saying, this is the direction we want to go.
And Ben, sorry to cut in there, because then I just want us to take a look at this. The point you make about what the way forward should be clearly impacts on what we're seeing here right now, because in terms of the revenue from crude oil, the revenue outlook from crude oil, we're looking at least a little over 1.36 billion in the year 2024, $1 billion as a matter of fact. That decline in revenue also reflects the decline in production. So when we see a decline in production, it directly impacts on the decline in the revenue that we'll get. So from $1.36 billion in 2024, it declined to a little over $770 million. And there is an expected recovery in terms of an increase in the projected revenue from crude oil from the 770 to about at least almost $990 million, all things being equal, for the year 2026. And taking into consideration the fact that crude oil prices have gone up at least, we saw $117, $118 per barrel because of this US-Israel-Iran war. Now we've seen it decline a bit. Now we're seeing, the last time we checked, based on the Bloomberg terminal, we're seeing now come down to about $96. Within at least the last...
Okay, I was going to answer my so our political highway. So Ofori-Atta and HSA a lawyer Martin Kpebu say all drop details on Ofori-Atta ni release no. Ya better master some Japan Kokotisa and some way edemai. Aha, gossip politics TV so. Madam